Murder of Brianna Denison. Snatched in the dead of night, Brianna Denison, 19, was known for being security conscious. A sophomore psychology student at Santa Barbara City College, she had returned to her Reno, Nevada, home for winter break and planned to attend a number of events associated with the SWAT 72 snowboarding festival on Saturday night, January 19, 2008, before heading back to college the next week. She made a list of the events she was planning to attend, gave it to her mother and informed her that she would be ending the night at the home of a friend, KT Hunter, also 19. Denison, Hunter and one of Hunter's housemates then proceeded to the SWAT events, ending with an early breakfast at Mel's Diner inside the Sands Regency Casino Hotel. It was about 4 a.m. when Brianna and Hunter returned home, dropped off by 4 male companions who drove away as the 2 young women entered the house. Hunter's housemate had returned hours earlier and had already gone to bed. After they changed into sleeping attire, Hunter gave Denison 2 blankets, a pillow and a teddy bear to bolster the pillow. Denison slept on the leather sofa downstairs, while Hunter retired to her bedroom that she shared with another girl. She took her dog with her and locked the bedroom door behind her. The 5-foot, 98-pound Denison presumably went to sleep on the sofa, in view of a glass-paneled front door that was left unlocked, as Hunter and the other girls living in the house typically left their doors. When Hunter awoke some 5 hours later and began looking for her friend, all she found was a silver dollar-sized bloodstain on the pillow that investigators would later determine had come from Denison. "Someone walked into my house and took my friend and did God knows what with her," Hunter said later. "It seems unreal, she is the nicest person, honest to God. She has such a good heart. It's so sad this happened." Hunter, who had been friends with Denison since high school, told police officers that she had not heard any noises after going to bed that Sunday morning, and that her dog had never barked. She explained that when she discovered that Denison was gone, she had telephoned Denison's mother and then had called the police. There were no signs of forced entry. There also were no signs of a struggle inside the home. Perplexed by the attractive, blue-eyed brunette's disappearance and deeply concerned that no one had heard from her, Hunter and Denison's family members worked assiduously to assist the police with their investigation. Police, including Lieutenant Robert McDonald, head of the robbery/homicide unit, and Detective David Jenkins, a 32-year veteran of the department, inspected the burnt orange, 2-story rental house on the 1300 block of Mackay Court, near the University of Nevada, Reno, UNR, campus, shortly after the first investigating officers had arrived to begin what initially had seemed to be a simple missing person case. Soon it became clear that it would be much more than that. Evidence. Upon awakening and realizing that Denison was missing from the residence under suspicious circumstances, Hunter and one of her roommates told the detectives, they had observed that one of the 2 blankets provided to Denison remained on the couch, but that the second blanket was lying on the floor of the kitchen roughly 6 feet from the sofa and along the path to the rear door of the house. Detective Jenkins observed that the blanket had a small blood stain on it. Strangely, the teddy bear was missing. As Jenkins walked through the house, he observed that the windows and doors had few coverings, and several provided an unobstructed view inside the house from Mackay Court as well as from adjacent College Drive. Anyone, he opined, choosing to look inside the windows early that morning likely could have seen Denison lying on the sofa as she slept. Jenkins also noted the pillow on the couch that was smeared with blood and mascara. There were 3 distinct blood stains/transfers on the same side of the pillow and oriented below the mascara stains, according to the detective's report. Each of the stains were irregular in shape, approximately 1 to 3 inches in diameter, and it was determined that one of the stains contained saliva mixed with mucus or phlegm. Later, all of the blood stains were identified by DNA analysis as belonging to Brianna Denison. Following additional analysis, forensic pathologists concluded that Denison appeared to have suffered an actively bleeding injury in or near her mouth, throat, or nose, at a time when her face was being pressed hard against the pillow, Jenkins said. Investigators also obtained a substance from the doorknob of the rear door that later yielded an unidentified male DNA profile. Had the rear door been the suspect's entrance to the house, or his exit with Denison? Or both? Denison had left her identification, wallet, cellular phone, and shoes behind, and was likely barefoot when she left the house. According to Hunter, she was last wearing a white tank top with pink angel wings and rhinestones, with the word Bindi imprinted on the back. She also may have been wearing sweatpants, either pink or light blue. Jenkins noted that Denison had sent and received multiple text messages in the time leading up to her disappearance, the last one at 4:23 a.m. It was later determined that she had been communicating with a former boyfriend who was living in Oregon. Police emphasized that the former boyfriend was not a suspect, he had been in Oregon at the time of her disappearance. The search continues. Reno police continue their search for Denison for the next several days, using search crews, dogs and helicopters to comb the areas near UNR, the surrounding snowy foothills, and other isolated areas in the vicinity. Uniformed officers also went door to door throughout the neighborhood in an effort to find someone who may have seen or heard something suspicious around the time Denison disappeared, but they failed to turn up anything significant. They also searched other areas around Reno, including along the Truckee River that runs through the center of town, and along the Union Pacific Railroad tracks, to no avail. The suspicious male DNA did not yield any hits in any law enforcement databases, indicating that the apparent abductor was not a known registered sex offender. In the aftermath of Denison's disappearance, literally hundreds of volunteers showed up daily at the Brianna Search Operations Center, set up inside a local casino. Flyers, along with blue ribbons that said, "Got Bree," were distributed and volunteers braved the harsh, cold weather of the northern Nevada winter each day to conduct grid searches in designated areas, all to no avail. Even Governor Jim Gibbons' wife, Dawn Gibbons, joined in the effort to look for clues, such as clothing or other evidence that might shed light on what had happened to Denison. As a mother of a child nearly the same age as Brianna, Ms. Gibbons, whose son had attended high school with Denison, said, "My heart goes out to the entire Denison family. I continue to be impressed by the overwhelming community support and many volunteers dedicated to the ongoing search efforts. This tragic case has touched the hearts of so many across the state." Despite the best efforts of everyone involved in the search for Denison, detectives knew that time would soon be working against them, if it wasn't already. "It is hugely important to solve a case like this in the first 24 to 36 hours, Reno Police Commander Ron Holliday said. "Every bit after that reduces our chances of finding her alive." Denison's relatives described her as a responsible and caring young woman, and maintained that she would have contacted them if she could. Their fear for her well-being increased with each passing hour. An earlier attack, as investigators worked to determine what had happened to Brianna Denison, they examined earlier, non-lethal attacks against young college girls in the area for links to the disappearance, either physical evidence, the suspect's modus operandi, or both. In the early morning hours of December 16, 2007, Reno police officer Andrew Hickman and several other officers had been dispatched to an address in the 1400 block of North Virginia Street to take a complaint from a young woman who had been kidnapped and sexually assaulted. The woman explained that she lived alone in an apartment in the immediate vicinity, and that she had arrived in her vehicle at approximately 2 a.m. as she exited her vehicle in the apartment complex's parking lot. She said, she had been physically assaulted by a stranger who knocked her to the ground and attempted to choke her with her right arm. Failing in that effort, he had placed his hand over her nose and mouth, causing her to pass out. He had then taken her to a nearby pickup truck and forced her inside. He had covered her face with a hooded sweatshirt. Her assailant had then driven a short while, perhaps 3 or 4 minutes, stopped in a dark and secluded area, and told her, "If you see my face, if you tell the police, I will kill you," before sodomizing her. When he had finished his sexual assault, he drove her back to her residence, keeping the panties that she had been wearing and telling her that he might be back. The victim told the investigators that her assailant was wearing a red short-sleeve shirt, with a blue neckline and a slick finish, like silk or polyester. She thought the shirt might have had a word embroidered on the upper left breast. She recalled that attacker wore pants like sports pants, made out of a soft material with an elastic waistband but no zipper. She also said that she had seen a baby's shoe on the front seat floorboard. The victim was examined for evidence of sexual attack, and several swabs were submitted to the Washoe County Crime Laboratory for analysis. The lab established the presence of a 4 and Y chromosome male in the profile. The victim's clothing was also examined and gray fiber consistent in appearance with that of automobile carpeting was found. Most compelling of all, the DNA profile matched that of the DNA profile in the Brianna Denison case. Detective Jenkins noted that the December attack had occurred in the same neighborhood from which Denison had been abducted, at a location less than 500 yards away. During follow-up interviews with the December victim, Jenkins learned that the attacker had been a white male, likely between the ages of 20 and 30 years old, between 5 feet 9 inches and 6 feet 3 inches in height, with a large or somewhat heavy build and brown hair. He was described as having thick, meaty fingers, and spoke clear, fluent English with no discernible regional dialect or accent. Other previous UNR attacks, the December sexual assault had not been the only such crime committed against an area woman. At approximately 5 p.m. on November 13, 2007, a 21-year-old female UNR student had been walking through the parking lot of an apartment complex in the 400 block of College Drive when an unknown male approached her from behind and placed her in a chokehold. The attacker dragged the victim between cars, and at one point pushed her to the ground and groped her. She fought back, screaming despite the suspect's commands for silence. Apparently fearing her noise would draw attention, the attacker kicked the victim in the head and arm and then ran away, leaving behind a few packages of unopened condoms. DNA evidence from that assault was linked as well to the December assault and to Denison's disappearance. Another earlier attack, which had occurred on October 22, 2007, against another female UNR student in a UNR parking garage, was also considered possibly linked to the other assaults. In that case, the UNR student had been raped in the parking garage. Detectives said that the circumstances of the assault and the attacker's method of operation were similar to the other cases, but the October case was not immediately connected to the others. Reno investigators told America's Most Wanted the suspect appeared to be seeking dominance and power over his victims, escalating in the severity of his attacks. All of the female victims were similar in appearance, petite with long, straight hair. The suspect's vehicle, the December victim told Detective Jenkins that the vehicle into which she had been forced was a late-model pickup truck with an extended cab. It had reclining bucket seats, gray or black upholstery and carpeting, a narrow raised center console with a hinged lid between the seats, and adjustable headrests. The truck had an automatic transmission, and the victim had noticed that the interior cab lights were located above the rearview mirror. It also required a big step up to get inside. Jenkins took the vehicle's description to a number of local automotive collision repair businesses and discovered that a number of Toyota Tacoma four-wheel drive pickups made between 2001 and 2006 matched the description. After additional interviews with the victims of the previous attacks, the Reno Police Department revised their suspect's description. He was now believed to be in his early 20s to mid-30s, and the skin of his abdomen, groin and upper legs was noticeably lighter than that of his hands and forearms. He wore a mustache and a goatee, with a gap where there was no hair between the ends of the mustache and the top of the goatee. His groin was also described as being without hair, as if hair removal cream or some similar process of hair removal had been used. A body is found. By the third week in the search for Denison, Reno police estimated that they had received more than 1,000 tips that they were continuing to pursue. However, on Saturday, February 16, 2008, their search for Denison came to an end. A woman's body found lying in a field in South Reno the previous day was positively identified as Brianna Denison. According to the autopsy report, she died of strangulation. Because the area had previously been covered in snow, police believe the body had been there for more than a week, possibly longer. The location was about 8 miles from Hunter's home where Denison had last been seen. 2 pairs of women's thong-style panties were found beneath one of Denison's legs, containing male and female DNA profiles that did not match Denison's DNA profile. One of the panties, however, contained the same DNA profile of the still unidentified attacker. Swabs taken from the victim revealed the presence of sperm, and DNA tests showed that the profile obtained from the sperm was consistent with the unknown male profile that had been obtained from the rear door of the house from which Denison had been abducted and with that obtained from the 2 prior attacks. There was no longer any question that Reno had a serial rapist on its hands, one that had escalated to homicide. The manhunt is on. A week after her body was found, a live, Love and Unite ceremony was held at the Reno Sparks Convention Center in memory of Brianna Denison. More than 3,000 mourners attended as police continued the search for her killer. Police advised people to be aware that the attacker's behavior and appearance might have changed since the discovery of Denison's body, noting that such changes would be apparent to people who were close to him. They asked anyone noticing unusual behavior or someone making marked appearance changes to contact the police. By early April 2008, police had received more than 4,000 tips in the case, but none of them had led to a suspect. The Regional Sex Offender Unit, which comprises officers from the Reno and Sparks police departments and the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, interviewed 100 sex offenders residing within a mile of the McKay Court residence, and contacted more than 1,700 registered sex offenders living in Washoe County, creating a backlog in DNA processing. Funds were quickly raised to help speed up the process, but a suspect remained elusive. Secret witness: on November 1, 2008, the Reno Police Department received a report from an anonymous caller through the secret witness tip line that a man by the name of James Bala, 27, was exhibiting strange behavior and fit some of the suspect criteria that police had developed in the various cases over the past year. Detective Adam Winiansky was assigned to follow up on the tip, and met with Bala on November 7th. Winiansky explained to Bala that he was working the Brianna Denison case, and that Bala's name had come up along with a number of other male subjects. He asked Bala for a saliva swab to eliminate him as a suspect, but Bala refused to provide it. Winiansky noted that Bala was very nervous during their meeting, and would not make eye contact with him. Winiansky also observed that Bala matched the physical characteristics of the attacker provided by the December 2007 victim. Before the interview concluded, Winiansky confronted Bala with reports that Bala had worked as a pipe fitter on a construction project on the UNR campus, but Bala denied them. Although Winiansky determined that Bala was the registered owner and frequent driver of a 2006 four-wheel drive Toyota Tacoma pickup truck with an extended cab, with gray-colored interior, during the time frame of the sexual assaults and Brianna's disappearance. Bala denied having anything to do with Denison's murder, and he claimed that his girlfriend, who was also the mother of his child, would provide him with an alibi for his whereabouts at the time of Denison's disappearance. Winiansky, lacking physical evidence that would ensure a conviction, had little choice but to let Bala go. Bala, born June 29, 1981, in Chicago, Illinois, James Michael Bala was 9 when his family moved to Reno. Later in life, he could be the life of a party or a barroom gathering, known as a funny guy who took martial arts classes. But he was also known to have a quick temper, and some described him as a bully. He joined the Marine Corps after high school and was promoted to the rank of Lance Corporal, but was discharged in 2001 for drug use. In 2002, upon his return to Reno, Bala came to the attention of authorities when he drunkenly threatened a former girlfriend's neighbor with a knife and was arrested. The former girlfriend filed for a restraining order against him, and he pleaded guilty in April 2003 to a misdemeanor charge involving the knife incident. Bala was sentenced to alcohol counseling and ordered to have no contact with the victim for a year, but no DNA samples were collected because the plea was only to a misdemeanor. Following his earlier run-ins with the law, Bala lived with a new girlfriend in Sparks, east of Reno, and they had a son together. Neighbors described him as a nice, normal guy, and no one noticed anything peculiar about him, even the police officers who trained alongside him in martial arts classes. Interview with a girlfriend: on November 12, 2008, Detectives Jenkins and Winiansky met with Bala's girlfriend. During the interview, she said that she had been involved with Bala for the previous 6 years and confirmed that they'd had a child together, who was 4. However, although they had been living together, the girlfriend could not account for Bala's whereabouts during the early morning hours of December 16, 2007, or on January 20, 2008. She said that their relationship had been tumultuous at times, and that it had not been uncommon for Bala to leave their residence for days at a time during the time frame in which the detectives were interested. She said that he claimed that he had been sleeping in his vehicle during the absences. Between March and September 2008, she said, Bala had left the Reno area to work as a pipe fitter in the state of Washington and sold his Toyota Tacoma pickup, replacing it with another vehicle. When Bala had decided to move back to the Reno area, his girlfriend recounted, she had traveled to Washington to help him make the move. While with him there, she said, she had discovered petite women's thong panties inside his vehicle. When she confronted him about them, he told her he had stolen them from a woman at a laundromat in Washington. Damning DNA, Bala's girlfriend then volunteered to provide a DNA saliva sample from Bala's son so that it could be compared to the DNA evidence that had been developed during the course of the investigation. Both Jenkins and Winiarski witnessed the DNA reference sample as it was collected from the child. Afterward, the detectives delivered it to the Washoe County Crime Laboratory. On November 25, 2008, after comparing the child's DNA profile to that of the suspect's DNA profile, it was determined that James Bela could not be excluded from the suspect's DNA profile and that the child was closely related to the suspect in Brianna Denison's death. Bela was subsequently arrested at a South Reno daycare center when he arrived to pick up his child, and was booked into the Washoe County Jail on charges of murder, first-degree kidnapping, and sexual assault. Once police had Bela in custody, they obtained a court order for a sample of his DNA, and announced the following day that his DNA matched the suspect's DNA. With the DNA results finally available, Bela was then charged with raping a UNR student in one of the university's parking garages, and with the December 2007 kidnapping and sexual assaulting of the other UNR student in December 2007. Bela's trial for the abduction and murder of Brianna Denison was held in May 2010. On May 27, the Washoe County District Court jury found James Bela guilty of all 5 counts in the murder of Brianna Denison and sexual assault of 2 other young women. On June 2, 2010, Bela was sentenced to death. I'm Jonathan. There are many more scary stories I will tell you. Like and subscribe my channel. Or there is another scary story I can tell.